Is this better?
Hello?
Hello?
Way better. Holy fuck. Okay, go. Spit your shit, King. Go.
Okay, so I watched a video on your debate against Ryle, for why you don't consider Gaza genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like in general, I do agree that it's a little unclear, but
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that you later referred to Bosnian genocide, the Bosnian genocide, right? The Srebrenica massacres, because when you were explaining your definition of genocide and why Palestine should not count, or
Mm-hmm.
the shit in Gaza should not count as a genocide. It completely applies to the arguments against Bosnia and a whole lot of other genocide, and is exactly why within the genocide convention they mentioned the or in whole or in part, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to deliberately target all the members or all the individuals of a certain group. You can, I think, as I understand it, you can only target a significant portion of the whole ethnic group or the whole national or whatever the protected group is. Um, yeah, I just think that's a little inaccuracy based on your debate against Ryle.
Um. Okay, so what point do you think I'm making there when I'm talking about when I was talking about Bosnia?
When you were talking about Bosnia,
Mm-hmm. Or the
what
Bosniaks?
point?
Yeah.
Oh, the Bosniaks, right? You
Mm-hmm.
were
Why,
trying.
why, why,
Wait,
why do
no,
you
you
why do
said
you
that
think I brought that up? In the first place.
because that was actually clear. That was that was an example of a well-defined genocide.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
So
your problem with it is the whole or in part?
yeah, because okay, yeah, based on your
Mm-hmm.
understanding of genocide that you
Mm-hmm.
explained against the Gazans, or why the Gazans shouldn't be considered a genocide, it can actually be applied to the Bosnian genocide, which is considered by everyone, right, including the UN, that it was a genocide, the Srebrenica
Sure, sure, sure.
genocide,
Yes, yes. Mm,
right? So you can,
mm-hmm.
so based on this, you understand where I'm getting at, right? You can just deliberately target one group, one part of an ethnic group, in this case, the Palestinians in Gaza,
Yeah,
or
sure. I
national group,
agree. Yeah. No, I
and
don't. I don't. I
it'd
don't
be
disagree.
completely fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't
So,
have a disagreement here. Yeah.
but okay, based on your debate
Mm-hmm.
with Ryle, one of your what is it? One of your what is it called? One of your arguments against potential genocide happening there was that there were Palestinians living in Israel, right?
Yes.
And they weren't really getting affected by the policies.
Uh, from what we know of, no, they're not being affected.
Yeah, of course, they weren't getting affected by the policies. No, they are
Yeah.
not. Right?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, even if that were true, even if they were getting treated like kings or like queens or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't that isn't necessary that it would be a genocide, or that isn't
Sure,
necessary
sure.
necessary
Okay, okay,
counter
okay,
proof
okay. I get
that
what
it
you're talking
wouldn't be a
about.
genocide.
Yes. What you're specifically saying is that just because there are Palestinians who are living in Israel right now peacefully without any kind of effect does not mean that there is not a genocide going on in Gaza. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sure.
That's
I get your point. I get your point. Now, would you say that what if they were to conduct a genocide, they would be targeting specifically Palestinians and not specifically Gazan Palestinians?
I don't know. I like it depends.
Sure. So here's
Like
the thing, right? Is that I think that you can make a distinction between Israeli Palestinians, aka Palestinians who live in Israel, versus Gazan Palestinians, aka Palestinians who live in Gaza. However, considering how there's no evidence so far of
wait,
Israel
hold
trying
on.
to make any kind of meaningful distinction between Gazan Palestinians and Israeli Palestinians, in the sense of like uh, missions or operations or something like that, I find no reason to believe that they don't just simply classify all Palestinians as like one group, but it's based on their location that they have different actions, right? Like for example, if you're a Palestinian that lives in Gaza, you're going to be treated as
Okay,
if
I'm sorry. I'm
you
sorry to
might
cut you off.
potentially
Okay,
be a.
Winter is fucking dude. Winter is fucking DMing me, and then I'm getting so distracted. Can you just repeat that? What like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Winter just fucking.
just ignore Discord, dude. Okay, I don't even know why he's doing that. Okay, whatever, weirdo. The thing is the thing is that usually when we look at previous, usually when we look at previous genocides,
Yeah.
it's it's almost never the case that we see a targeted population living in the nation whose government is doing the genociding that peacefully, right? Like for example, I can't really think of a single instance throughout history where that is a thing. Can you?
I mean, wait. Do you refer to the Holodomor as a genocide? Because it's so that is widely debated, right?
I personally do not think so. No,
Okay, but that is
but that's a
arguably
personal. But
a
that's a
one. That
personal.
well, can we just
That's
use
another
the
topic
Holodomor as
entirely.
like a,
Whether or not that's a genocide or not is another different
yeah,
topic.
yeah,
Though.
but like, can we
Like
use
yeah,
the
that's
Holodomor just
complicated.
like
Sure. Yeah. Go.
because a lot of people do consider the Holodomor as a genocide. I
Okay.
mean, me for me, it's like 50. I don't really know, but they did target Ukrainians. Um, there were plenty of Ukrainians, I believe, living on mainland Soviet at that time, and I don't know if they were living peacefully necessarily, but they were probably facing discrimination. But I don't think they were massively affected by they were affected to the same extent nearly by the policies that affected the Ukrainians under the Holodomor, right? So
Wait,
that's
but
one
the thing
example.
is that like I don't know, we don't even agree on the Holodomor whether or not it's a genocide or not. No, like, so I don't think we
Yeah,
can
but
use this as an
it's
example.
something that's it's one that's I'm kind of familiar with, and it's one that like a lot of people would
Sure.
argue that it's a genocide. It's like it's a
I mean,
good. I
sure,
think it's
but
a
then
good
it's
case study,
like,
right?
yeah, but then sure, but then the debate would just then become like whether or not the Holodomor was a genocide versus like whether Israel is
Okay,
doing
okay.
in
Yeah.
Palestine could potentially be a genocide. I mean, we can
Well,
talk about
okay.
that if
Based
you want,
on
but it's like I don't want
no,
to
no,
get
it's
off track too
fine.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, but well, we can just use the genocide convention, the definition of the genocide
Yeah,
convention.
sure. I use that one.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
yeah,
Have you heard about the Gorman massacre? Sorry. I was
the
just like I
Gorman
got
massacre.
distracted. I got distracted by chat. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, keep going.
No, I don't know what the I don't know what that is.
No, don't worry about it.
All right. Yeah, that's one part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with your actual contention because um yeah, that's one of the reasons why by the way, I personally don't know, and I lean to the side of not thinking that it's a genocide in Gaza. I just don't know if the way you were arguing it in Riles
Mm-hmm.
was a good way of doing it. So I just wanted to
Okay.
point you out. But
Sure, that's fine. That's
um,
fine. Okay, okay, the point I was specifically making in that debate against Ryle Kittenhouse, aka Jew stalkers, fucking Kiwi Farms
yeah, I
RSS feed.
understand.
All right, listen, I have to roast him a little bit, okay? The thing is that for him, um the problem is that he didn't let me finish, okay? That is the problem, okay? The thing is that the entire point I was trying to make is yes, there is a set standard of conditions for genocide in terms of the UN resolution, whatever, right? And I believe that first of all, the intent has to be there, and then the second part is the effort has to be there to match with the intent. However,
Yeah,
it's not as broad as you think it is at all, okay? The reason for this is because the standard for evidence in terms of the planning of genocide is extremely high. For example, usually I think what we can look at in terms of established genocides are like orders, plans, premeditation, right? Purpose that is none other but to commit genocide. Tractors that were there beforehand to dig up
wait. From my
holes to toss
understanding, there
the
was actually
bodies
like
into. Yeah.
No, from my understanding, there was a concept of you don't necessarily need to find documentation of intent, but you can infer intent from pattern of conduct, right? A pattern of
Yeah,
conduct was
yes,
decided.
yeah, yeah, sure, of course. You don't need to necessarily find documentation. However, um, like for example, even if there was no documentation for the Bosnian genocide, right? They had You're aware of the tractors that were placed there like months beforehand, months before the shootings, right?
Sure.
And you're also aware how they deliberately targeted men specifically, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah, I know
women.
about that.
Yeah.
About that.
So so with these details, um you can
Yeah,
reasonably
so
infer that
no,
there is
I
premeditation for
understand, right?
genocide. However, the problem with Israel versus Palestine is that it seems as though that they want to perform ethnic cleansing instead, where they want to clear out Gaza to be IDF, fucking occupied in order to occupy that space and, to possess it and blah, 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 right? Which, in my opinion, offers an alternative explanation other than genocide, in which the
I
proof
actually listen. I
against
agree with you. I think
genocide
that's actually
is more. Yeah,
that's a
sure.
great
Yeah,
argument against
sure.
genocide. It's just that that wasn't
Yeah.
really pointed out in the overall debate, right? I would also like that's kind of part of my logic why.
Remember. This is for people who never watched the debate. Like there was just like 3v1 dogpiling. So like, there's no way I can get any step out or anything. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
but like you still believed in what you said,
mm-hmm.
I think, right? Like or regarding what you said, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that's why I had that misunderstanding. But also another thing I wanted to point out is the births. What you said about births. I think it was on your follow-up video when you were reacting to um your
Yeah.
debate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that is not necessarily how do I say this? That is one way that you can commit genocide. That is not necessarily like a differing factor, as that's not a
Yeah,
what you need to
that's
have this to
sure.
commit
I
genocide,
agree with
right?
you. Yes, I agree with you. That's fine. For example, the
But
Nazis during the Holocaust, they killed both men and women, right? Of course. But the thing is that while these are known variations between recognized genocides, the non-targeting of Palestinians within Israeli territory is not really a known differentiation between genocides. Does that make sense?
no, I meant
Like
the
this has
births.
never
You
been a
said
thing
that
before.
what
Yeah.
main characteristic of genocide of every single genocide would be either mass sterilization or preventing births somehow,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
forced abortion, shit like that. That is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily characteristic in every single genocide,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Like
I
you can
recognize
argue.
that. Yes, yes, I recognize that. Yes, of course, I agree with you. Of course, I'm not saying
So
yes, you have to have these aspects, or you don't have to have these aspects. Like, I'm not saying that, right? I'm saying, like, for
yeah,
example, for the five efforts to impose genocide upon a group of people, right? It is you just have to meet one of them, and that's enough, right? You just have to meet one of them, and that's
yeah.
enough. So I totally get it. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
that was
okay.
one thing that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to point out. Wait, so we're in agreement there. Just a
Sure.
bit, wait, based on this, like, are you like, what do you, so I understand
This is
your
okay.
other
Okay, you
alternative,
realize?
right?
Oh, hold on. You realize this is why I asked in chat what we disagreed on in the first place, right? Like this is why I asked, because otherwise you're coming in here and turns out we actually agree on everything, which is like a waste of my time, right? Like, yeah.
I mean, based on your understanding of genocide in Ryle's thing, though, like, I thought we had a lot of disagreements regarding that. Maybe okay, it could be possible that, um, I don't know, but, yeah, that's my main only two. But even based on your current understanding of genocide now, right? Now we're talking. Uh, what makes you so against the idea that potentially there is a genocide in Gaza?
Um. So this is not
Because
like
all
this
the
is
arguments that I think you gave in Ryle
sure.
isn't necessarily.
Sure. The way I view genocide is the same way I would view trying to prove first degree murder in a court of law. Um, And the reason I say that is because there has to be overwhelming evidence that is beyond a shadow of a doubt with no other fucking thing. The thing is that in terms of genocide, I think that there has to be proof of premeditation, the speed in which it's carried out, typically a very strict time span in which orders are being given to eliminate a group of people or to control the population down to a percentage, which is impartial, right? And the reason why that impartial part is there in the first place, I assume, is because you can eliminate all the men of a population, and that is also genocide. Because if you just leave the woman alive, now they're just gonna fuck with men who are not that group of population. So therefore, you're just like kind of genociding them out. But the thing is like, uh, I guess what I'm saying is like right now it seems like everything the IDF is doing is bad. You can argue for ethnic displacement, but at the same time, I don't think what they're doing is, for example, the fucking tapper bombs, right? The leaflets telling Palestinians to leave the land before the IDF starts bombing. The orders like meant to send like 1 million people to away from the land, right? And also there is no leaked private order so far to eliminate anyone. There's not really any good evidence of like planned mass graves in which the mass graves are like I don't know, like where I don't know, like everything seems to point away from genocide, not towards genocide, you know. But do you know, but one such conflict where it does actually point towards genocide, in which there is not yet settled in an international court, is the Ukrainian war. I actually do think that there is enough signs there to like reasonably say what Russia is doing in Ukraine right now is a genocide. Yeah. Does
Okay.
that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, no, no, I understand.
Okay.
It just I find at least for me, I think it's the opposite. That's just my vibes. As the war
Opposite
goes on.
how? Like opposite how? Do you mean like, oh, the Russians don't actually plan on genocide in the Ukrainians
No, 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 no,
and
no, not necessarily Russia. I'm not
oh,
even
okay,
talking about.
okay.
I think regarding Gaza.
Oh.
Um, the reason why I think this is because I read an article where I'm not sure. Okay, I could send you the link, but I'll just tell you. But it is they did interview I think 7 genocide scholars, and they were all in agreement that there is a certain academic consensus that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. And I was actually quite surprised regarding that because I am still even on the opinion. I am still even on the opinion that I don't really know if it's genocide. I probably would lean to not because there's a lot of what you said, right, regarding the leaflets, regarding the text messages,
Mm-hmm.
directing Gazans to safety. But I mean, these are people that are they're more well researched than both either of
I'm
us.
not entirely sure which 7 genocide scholars you're talking about, but the thing is that I think the brain rot when it comes to the Israel versus Palestinian conflict is so deep to the point where it even affects like professors and scholars and stuff like that. Where even though they might
Well, no,
have a
this well,
feeling,
yeah, that's just
they might be
one.
making
That's
like vibe
okay.
based
Okay.
arguments. Yeah, like
No,
even
no, I could
though
understand if it's just one, but they are
yeah.
claiming that there's an economic consensus. That's a little bit more
Yeah,
deep, right?
yeah, it's fine for them to say that, but then I would then say, what evidence are they like
Yeah. Okay.
citing?
So then this is what I wanted to. This is what I wanted to um pivot towards, right?
Yeah.
Regarding uh regarding evidence that Israel is not doing genocide by giving out flyers, for example, or giving out instructions to leave.
Mm-hmm.
They pointed to it again. I'm not really necessarily convinced of this argument, but they pointed as that being possible that they have mixed double intentions, that they're kind of doing it to avoid the condemnation of genocide. However, the intent is still there, and this is what they're saying.
Uh
Yeah.
at that point, you realize that sounds kind of dubious, right? Where um okay, so we want to commit genocide, but we don't want like for example, when was the last time Israel ever cared about like public perception in terms of invading Iran, or invading, like, or attacking Hezbollah, or attacking any of these places. But then suddenly, when it comes to like a situation like this, like they don't want to do it. And if anything, if I was Israel, okay, I would start shipping like Palestinians off to the death camps. All right, in terms of Palestinians in Israel, there's literally no reason not to, pretty much, right? Like, I can reasonably infer from a high level of Israeli power that,
Well, not
yeah,
really. I don't
like
think so.
these people are probably
Well,
more
it's not,
sympathetic to Gazan, like, Palestinians. Why the fuck would I keep them around, right?
dude. I
Like, the
think
thing is
okay.
that
The
there's so
reason
many
why,
questions here you're opening up to. Yeah.
well, okay, Israel. Okay, wait. Okay, Israel doesn't really care about
Mm.
international condemnation because they know that the international condemnation means fuck all, right?
Yeah, it means fuck all to
If you
them.
still
Yeah,
can
exactly.
retain, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Means fuck all because it doesn't really, no one can actually enforce, um, yeah, no one can really enforce what they want, um, against Israel.
Hmm.
So international condemnation, but what does matter to them is the opinion of the U.S. I think that is the only changing factor regarding that, right? I think if Israel genuinely did not do any of this shit, right? Like if they were ironically, as you say, sending death camps, sending Palestinians and Israeli to death camps, I feel like that is something so condemnation. Like that is something that is so condemnating. Is that
Condemning,
that word?
condemning, condemning.
Condemning, yeah, condemning. Um, that America would have to change some of its policies, right? So I think that is certainly what. I don't think the international condemnation is a good argument against that. I think there is still a strong argument against the potential double intentions that these people are citing. But yeah, that's my opinion. Again, like this is why I said I'm not totally bought into that. I think if I were to be completely bought into, if I were to be completely convinced that there is a genocide going
Hmm.
on, I would probably need something more, something a little bit like what you are saying, a little bit more of a plan
Yeah, yeah, sure. Like, we
within
don't
the
we don't we
government,
don't we
something
don't
like
even
that.
disagree, right? Like, the thing is, the seven genocide scholars, like, depending on what they're saying, depending on what they're citing, I could even agree with them, right? Right now I feel like we're in the weird in between zone where we could classify it as genocide, but we don't have to. And there are obvious reasonable bounds in which we can there's like yeah, but like right now, to say that it's a genocide, you're saying, you're calling a second degree murder a first degree murder without like good evidence. That's what you're doing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but wait, regarding Russia and Ukraine, why do you think it's
Hmm.
there's enough science to consider that a genocide right now?
Yeah, sure. Give me a moment. I'm gonna be right back, and then I'll get back to you real quick. Okay, hold on. Just say hello to the chat. Whatever.
Yeah, is anyone in chat? I can't read chat right now, by the way, so I can't read what you guys are saying. Wait, I'll pop up chat. Is Yojin chat? Yo, where the fuck is that guy? Come
Yo,
here.
I'm probably also gonna be dragging Winter in here. You don't mind, do you? Or do you want to talk to me solo?
No, I don't mind talking to Winter.
Oh, never
I
mind.
don't
Never
know
mind.
what.
He's not in the weight room anymore. Never mind. He ran. Okay.
Fuck him, bro.
Cool.
Winter, come in, you pussy. God damn.
Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, the reason why I think that, in terms of Ukraine and Russia, I think that there is an so for context, you have to keep in mind that Ukraine is has a less, I assume that has a less like population density than Gaza. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wait,
if they
less.
have
So
a
it's a little bit more dispersed, right?
Sure, yes, yes, exactly. The reason why it's so hard to determine whether or not the IDF is deliberately targeting like civilian centers or not is because it's so thick, right? Hold on. Anyway, the point
Yo,
is
what do you
is
what do you want?